Hi guys, it's great to be back. I've been away for a couple of months from making videos, and one of the places I've been is in the city that's on the screen right now, which is Hong Kong. And to give you a bit of a backstory on myself, to make sense of this video, I'll start by saying I was in Hong Kong working there for around 10 years, and I met and married my wife there. She's also an expat in Hong Kong at the time, and she spent almost 20 years there altogether. And unfortunately, after a nice few years together, some bad health hit us both in the same week. And my wife went into renal failure, and I found out that I had cancer and needed immediate treatment for that. Unfortunately, my wife was very ill at the time, and I had to leave her and head off to Australia to begin my own treatment. And fortunately, she did make her way back to her home country in Thailand, where she got immediate treatment and is still undergoing dialysis to this day, which stops us being together for the time being. And it's been that way for the last 2.5 years or so. I only get to see her now around every 6 months. And that's where I've been for the last 6 weeks or so, and only got back into my home in Australia yesterday. But while I was away, I recorded a few things, and I kept up with some videos of who I subscribe to. One is Jonathan Kleck, and the other one is KJ of the Scariest Movie Ever channel. And I noticed that there was a video that Jonathan Kleck did on that, and it prompted this video as soon as I got home. So let's jump into it today and start by down in Melbourne around 3 years ago, when I went down there to begin my treatment. The first thing that happened was I went for some scans, and the following day had an appointment at 10 o'clock and had to go and find out the results of that. But as I woke up in the morning, I asked the Lord, will Australia be far enough away? Will Melbourne, Australia, be far enough away? Because most of my stuff that I'd had up until that stage was predominantly in America or Northern Hemisphere and Europe at least. So I was simply asking the question. I heard the Lord's voice say, go for a walk. Now this was maybe 10 or 15 minutes before 9 a.m. I was very close into the city centre where I was staying, and the hospital that I was going to shortly thereafter was also quite close to the city centre. And I heard the Lord's voice say, go for a walk and record what I show you. So that's exactly what I did, and out the door I went at just before 9 a.m. to do this quick walk around the city, because my appointment was at 10 a.m. to see the doctor. And the first place I went was just around the corner from where I was staying, literally, and I looked into the window of a shop, and here is a shirt with 666 all over it and skull-type figure here. And as I looked above that shirt, there's a hand being nailed, obviously, onto a cross. And I'm thinking, well, I'm on the right trail here, obviously, Lord. So that was the shop that it was in. It was called Off Your Tree. And, of course, we also know that the cross is also called a tree. Melbourne is known for its graffiti artists, and you can actually join tours around. So I knew none of this stuff at the time, where they were. I just simply was being led by the Lord where he wanted me to go and take photos. So every corner I seemed to turn, there was something else for me to see. You recall, I asked the Lord, is Melbourne going to be far enough away from the trials and tribulations of the Northern Hemisphere? Is my answer, literally. This one is by an artist, a graffiti artist, and obviously this guy knows something that we know, that delve into this stuff as well, because here is a mask, and behind that mask, one eye is connected to the occult. This checkerboard here is literally to secret societies and the occult. So even the street artists tend to know something. Another bit of street art was obviously the Queen of Heaven, and I couldn't help but make correlations to this in the I, Pet Goat 2, the old girl trapped and her menstruation drying up at the time. So you can see the correlation I was making there. Next one is around another corner. Was an old poster. Witness the miracles up close, the illusionaire. Expect the unexpected, which literally is Satan's deal, isn't it? Does he do any miracles? Well, sure. This one is talking about the second beast, Revelation 13, and he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those who do miracles. So we're going to see some pretty amazing stuff that will look like miracles, but it's only there to deceive. It's coming up. This one is in Queen Street in Melbourne, and I couldn't help but stop because the pillar that holds up the Queen, or the Queen of Heaven, is the pillar here with 333 and 333 on both sides. Add those together, it's 666. So the pillar that's holding up the Queen is the 666 carbon-based system here on Earth. And you might say, oh, well, there's another 333 there. Well, you could add that in and make it 999 if you like. Turn it upside down as in Isaiah 29:16 we're supposed to do, and you'll end up with 666 again. Interestingly enough, as I got close, we live in this carbon-based system in this world. We live under the law, and this here was a legal firm. Into an alley, I saw another bit of graffiti art. Those who've been to the Victoria markets in Melbourne will see this close by, an angel, female angel figure, standing on the world with a human skull in her left hand. A CHIMAERA type figure. This was in a menswear store. It was very upmarket and very close into the financial area. Another CHIMAERA figure in the same shop with a darkened eye, and within 5 feet of that was a plaque on the wall which says CHIMAERA Capital, not at the same store. This was right next door in a big financial building. See, the lion's tail turns into a serpent. This is the address that was all at, is 333 Collins Street. 333 is a very occultic number. And this is beautiful old building that's been beautifully done. And you can see here the time, as I said, it was just before 9 o'clock, and I started to walk, and here it is 5 or 7 minutes past 9 at the time I'm taking this photo. Now inside this beautiful building there is a couple of lift lobbies, and these are huge vases, almost as tall as a man, and huge demonic Satan heads are on the vases themselves. Inside this building here, this is a list of the people who are in the building, and although it's a bit blurred because it had a glass front on it. There's the Deutsche Bank there, Deutsche Asset Management, EMR Capital, HSBC. So it's a house of money and money movers in this place. Those of you who followed Jonathan Kleck's stuff for a while will know that symbolism quite well as the Vesica Pisces and the upside down or pyramid-like V of the Australian Diamond Company. There was a festival on, this is like 2 or 3 years ago now, so there was a festival at the time for the children, and nice little 8-pointed star for Lucifer right in the centre of it. Rebel clothing, and I put the 2 V's here as Jonathan Kleck obviously does a lot in his as well. And we've got forward and backward E's, and E is the 5th letter of the alphabet, which is a V and a V, which makes the W, if you put them together, the W. And of course these are forward and backwards as well. Walking up another street on one side of the road, I heard the Lord's voice say, cross the road here, and I was around in the middle of the block and a reasonable distance from pedestrian lights either end of the block. So I crossed the road past trams and traffic, and across the other side of the street I found a small art shop, and this was right up in the window, so I realised why the Lord had called me across the street at that point. But there's a little bit of everything in it. Spend a moment or two and you'll see aliens, demons and the like. Nearby was a shop that sells masks, and you'll see that the elite often have these parties where they wear masks to hide their identity as they indulge in some dark acts with each other. It was around about the time when Donald Trump had just been elected, and there were stencils on the footpath about Donald Trump. There was this large mural on the side of a building. This is in the southern hemisphere, on the other side of the earth from the United States. And it makes you ask the question, why would a new president on the other side of the earth cause such consternation, even down under, in Australia, in Melbourne? And it makes me realise that this will go around the whole world, and the demonic element that knows that their time is up encompasses the whole world. Now, as I finished my walk, I was walking towards this hospital, ready to go in and find out the full extent of how far the cancer had travelled in my body. And I crossed the road here, and I was walking up past these windows right here. When I looked at those windows, and somebody had scribed 666 into the dust on the windows. I then went upstairs and waited in the patient's waiting area for my appointment with my oncologist. And I looked at the book stand for people to read, and I almost burst out laughing here because this had got too much for me at that stage. It was just crazy. A vaudeville of devils, shallow graves, a death in Vienna, ghost in the polka dot bikini. I was so amused by this, but I also was shocked that they would have that sort of thing in a waiting room in a cancer clinic. And I went over to the receptionist and I said, "Do you realise that cancer is a mental game as well? And to have these sort of books sitting there for people to read, for anybody that doesn't know the Lord or suffers a little bit fear from cancer, having those there would certainly not help." And I couldn't help but think of this song, because this is the devil whispering in your ear everywhere you go, trying to destroy you. And I couldn't help but think about this song, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his words. And here they are. Eventually I got called in for my appointment, and as this hospital is a research hospital, it attracts some very qualified people, and probably the most qualified in the type of cancer I've got. The most qualified professor in the world took on my case because he heard of it and my situation with my wife in one country with renal failure and me there getting cancer. So he took a personal interest, and after he told me that I had stage 4 lung and esophagus cancer, he looked at me and said, "What do you think about that?" And I simply answered him, "Well, I've got a really good relationship with the guy upstairs," and literally saying to him, "Well, you do your job and the Lord and I will work the rest out." He smiled at me. And for anybody that is watching this video that is suffering any sort of ailment, especially one of the cancers, he looked at me and smiled and said, "We have evidence to prove that people of faith do much, much better." And with that, one of the registrars that was looking after me did say that the type of treatment I have been getting has the potential to kill. One of the side effects is death. And of course, my answer to that was, well, can it kill me any more dead than the underlying cancer? And if not, then let's get on with it. And in fact, that's almost what did happen. Within about 6 weeks, I'd almost died from it, from complications. And the treatment had to be stopped, and I ended up on one of these little wheelie walker frames for around 3 months. And in that time, I was wandering around the streets of Melbourne the best way I could. And one day I was walking up a street near the accommodation where I was staying, and I saw a piece of rubbish, a beer bottle on the side of the road, and the Lord told me, "Pick it up." And so I did. And this is what it was. It was a boutique beer, and it's called Bad Shepherd, the Almighty. And these 2 sickles here actually make a face of a goat as well, with the large lightning bolt as well. On the other side of the bottle it says, "Leading you into temptation." And I've literally gone, wow, hearing the Lord's voice say, "Pick up some rubbish," and seeing that on it, I decided then I would look at where it was made. And here it is. This is you can see almost that those 2 sickles. One could even be a stylized scorpion's tail, couldn't it? But it's called the Bad Shepherd. The Bad Shepherd of what? I know the Lord was leading me somewhere, but the Bad Shepherd of what? Here on the earth, here we are, and look at what the elevation is here, right here. 119. So what's 119 in the Bible? H119, what do you know, is Adam. So Adam is being led by a bad shepherd into this darkness. See how dark the building is? And I'm going, wow, Lord, this is amazing stuff that you're leading me to here. And of course, where there is a bad shepherd, here's the bad shepherd, where there is a bad shepherd, why would the Lord lead me to here? Because he says, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. So he knows us, and we know him. So, okay, Lord, you're leading me here. So, how do we get out? How does, if the bad shepherd has led you into darkness, which every person who lives here on earth, every Adam here on earth has been led into darkness, how do you get out of this house of darkness called the world? Well, you get out by the door, because the Lord Jesus says, I am the door. And as I was watching Jonathan Kleck's video about his cat dying, and then him having that on the door, and I am being led to this, I am the door, I go back to here and I look at the door and I see this number on it, 386. So I go and have a look at what 386 is in the Bible. And here it is in Matthew 22:23, meaning resurrection. Have a look at this. Standing up again, a resurrection from death, a moral recovery, raised to life again, resurrection, rise from the dead. That should rise again. Now, Jonathan Kleck, at the moment, he's been talking about this word anakrina, and this comes from the same thing, anastasis, to rise or lift up again. This is just incredible confirmation of what he's been saying. And when I go back to this, to get out of the darkness and come out into the light again, you have to pass through the door. I mean, I get gobsmacked when the Lord does this, because he's just confirming to me exactly what we've been hearing from Jonathan Kleck. Now, Jonathan Kleck also said that he's a sheep in wolf's clothing, and as are we all. So I went round the side of this same building, and it says, Home of Wolf of the Willows. If you do a little bit of research on willows, you'll find that it has some in the Bible, but it also has some pretty dark occultic stuff attached to the willow tree as well. So getting back here to Hong Kong. Recently, in the last 6 weeks, I've been to Bangkok to visit my wife, but I also had to briefly go and visit Hong Kong to finalise some stuff that I had yet to do. Indeed, it was tax that I still hadn't paid off all my tax, because I've been not working for the last 3 years, and finally got it all paid off. And of course, as the Bible says, pay to Caesar what is Caesar's, because a lot of people were saying to me, well, you don't have to go back. Why bother even paying them? But I refer to that scripture, pay to Caesar what is Caesar's. And I'm glad I did, because while there, an old friend of mine asked me to come and speak to the Bible study class that I used to join there and sometimes lead, and show him and the rest of the Bible study group my insights. And I started with something that Jonathan Kleck showed, a recent one with this video of Madonna, because at the time, and it's still going on there now as this video was made, the protests in Hong Kong, and we could see some correlations here. Madonna's got one eye closed, and the people are wearing masks. Or one eye closed, people wearing masks. Losing sight forever is what this says here. And I was also sharing with them some of the things that I've done in my other videos, which was that he says to them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. And I've shown in previous videos how the occultists tend to use the lightning bolt as their representation of Satan, which is Satan as lightning fall from heaven, and you can see that the 777 for the occultists is a lightning bolt. And one of the most satanic people to have lived in the last 100 years is this ALEISTER CROWLEY, and he wrote a book, 777. And it was just absolutely stunning that as I'm actually giving a presentation on this in Hong Kong to a small group, they were sticking stickers on businesses in protest out on the streets at the very moment that I'm talking about this. And as we looked at the 777 stickers that they were putting on, I noticed that it was a style of an old automatic Tommy gun, if you want to put it that way, an automatic weapon crossed with a baton. And if I can say, that made my Bible study group sit up and take notice of the world around them like nothing could. And only the Lord could have orchestrated that. While I was away, I also looked at the scariest movie ever by KJ. He put out one about the Dark Mofo Festival in Tasmania, in Australia. I'm so glad he did, because this is where I live. I'm from Tasmania, in Australia. And I have made mention of this in other social media in the last year or two as a distressing thing to see in my home state. And for this to be acknowledged by our state government as a family-based festival, when this is the type of art that they're showing, is just shocking. And it's all in this little place called Tasmania. This is Melbourne, Australia, and this is the island that I live. And I did ask the Lord, is Melbourne and Tasmania going to be far enough away? That should tell you that no, this will circle the world. And you better have yourself in the right place. Now, while in Thailand, just recently, even the last week or so, my sister-in-law has two beautiful little girls. One of them is just about 3 years old. And she was looking at her iPhone, little iPhone that she was playing some games on, and she was very intent in asking her mother about the pumpkins. Now here we are, we're in October, we're rising towards Halloween, and she was seeing all these little happy pumpkins, and she was mentioning Halloween, and of course her mother knew nothing about Halloween. The mother's a Buddhist, and it's not big in Thailand at all yet, but it is making inroads there. And of course, when she looked over her child's shoulder, all she could see was happy pumpkins and happy Halloween. And she finally asked me, and because she wasn't sure, and she asked, what is this Halloween all about? And in Australia, it's starting to make inroads there as well. Also into Hong Kong, where I've lived there. It's very much made its way into Hong Kong. And there are parties all over for Halloween parties. And of course, I had to tell her the truth. I wanted to so it's not necessarily just a party for kids. It's got a background, it's got a history, and the history is somewhat dark. I tried to tell her about the Druids, the history that Halloween is connected to Druids, but the best thing I did to try and give her some education on it was I pulled up this page. It's the Satanic Holidays. We start here at about October 13, and it would have been close to that date when this question was being asked of me. I said, well, hey, just look at this. Preparation for All Hallows Eve, or Halloween. So she saw the word, and I said, there it comes to abduction, holding and ceremonial preparation of individual for human sacrifice. Now that rang bells in her mind, because she remembered reading stories about children being abducted at around about this time. So we come to October the 30th and 31st, All Hallows Eve and Halloween night. And so the type of celebration it is for blood and sexual climax associated with demons, animal and human sacrifice. Who are they doing it to? Any age, male or female, or an animal. Their holy day, the satanic holy day of Halloween, The celebration is about blood. It's human sacrifice, any age, male or female. And of course, you only have to go to November 4th, and it goes to this type of sexual celebration: oral, anal, and vaginal. Who to? 7 to 17-year-old females, kids. What about Christmas Eve? They've also got a blood sacrifice there too. They receive body parts as Christmas gifts. Who of? Well, infant males, of course. So I simply said to her, if you haven't had Halloween celebrations into your household yet, don't invite it in. It's not worth inviting this sort of demonic presence into your house. And she agreed. I was so thankful for that. And as I'm leaving Bangkok just the other day, I was wondering about these beautiful people, the Thais. I love these people. But I was asking the Lord, hey, look, these people don't know about Christianity. They don't know about Jesus. They're predominantly Buddhists. The vast majority of Thais are Buddhists. And they don't tend to have the anti-Christian mindset as some other religions do, such as Islam, against the Christians. They're quite accepting of Christians. I was wondering and asking the Lord, what will become of these people? They don't seem to fit anywhere in my mind of what may happen to them. And it wasn't until I was travelling to the airport only 2 days ago now, and the Lord answered my question when I was asking, what will become of these beautiful people? How will this end days thing affect them? And the answer was right in this photo, because I was in heavy traffic on the way to the airport. And the Lord answers my questions in very odd ways. But here it is. The answer is in this photo right here. And these are Thai number plates, so you can see that I'm on the way to the airport. And this is simply out of the window of the taxi. The answer is right under the yellow arrow. You will see a robotic type figure having sex with a sheep, screwing a sheep, shagging a sheep. And then the Lord has said to me, that's how they're going to be affected. This little guy is technology. It could be transhumanism. Simply could be taking the mark of the beast. They won't know. The Lord was telling me that they will line up because they'll have no knowledge of this mark of the beast, and they will accept the mark of the beast as being a good thing. Therefore, the sheep are being screwed. I realised I'd seen this article, Neuralink, the secretive human brain startup backed by Elon Musk, and this is connecting yourself to the internet via a chip in your brain, and you'll be able to connect directly into the internet and instantly download stuff. Now, Elon Musk has been saying for some time that we will have to keep up with AI, artificial intelligence, or they may seek to destroy us because they don't need us anymore. His answer to that possible evil that he sees is to embed these chips in our brain and become just as smart as artificial intelligence may become. And I thought, well, let's have a look at the word Elon. The name Elon appears in the Bible. Here it is in Judges 12:11, and judging Israel. But what does Elon mean? It says here is as an oak or a strong tree, a mighty man. Well, Elon Musk has been a mighty man in the area of leading edge technology. A post or a ram or a tree, a strong tree. Well, here is Elon Musk, fearful of the evil of AI, that it may destroy good humanity. So here's a man named whose name means tree, speaking of a tree of good and evil. So you can see that the United States is right in the firing line. Australia, Melbourne is not going to be far enough away. Tasmania has already going down the gurgle with its dark mofo festivals. Bangkok is not going to be far enough away. Hong Kong is going down the toilet as well. This will sweep the world, and it is now. It's ramping up right now. So if you haven't given yourself to Jesus Christ, if you haven't opened the door and come out into the light, then it's time you did. Come out of the darkness and into the light. Leave the bad shepherd behind. Find Jesus today. May the Lord bless you and keep you.